Perfect. Thanks for sharing the script. Below I've converted your text into clean 5-sentence paragraphs, keeping the asterisk same tone, meaning, and cinematic flow, but making it easier for narration, pacing, subtitles, or shot-by-scene editing, asterisk. No one remembers when the praying began. Historians would later argue about dates, first transmissions, and forgotten prophecies. They debated whether the galaxy had always been on its knees, or if fear simply made it feel that way. But for those who lived through it, prayer wasn't a moment. It was a condition. It was a constant state of desperation clinging to every breath and every thought. It lingered over every fading star in the night sky. The galaxy was dying, and everyone could feel it. Not slowly, and certainly not peacefully. It was being eaten. World after world went silent without warning. Entire civilizations, older than Earth's sun, vanished in the time it took light to cross a system. There were no declarations of war, and no demands for surrender. No negotiations were ever offered. There was only empty space where life had once thrived. The invaders had no name at first. Those who encountered them rarely survived long enough to describe them. Sensor data revealed impossible shapes and structures that bent geometry itself. Fleets moved without engines, and weapons did not fire but simply erased. Shields were ignored, physics was mocked, and matter was treated like a suggestion. To the galaxy's greatest minds, it felt as if reality itself had turned hostile. Every law they trusted began to fail. Every equation led to uncertainty. Science no longer offered comfort or clarity. And so, the praying began. At first it was quiet, and deeply personal. Private rituals returned to temples long abandoned. Scientists whispered pleas after losing faith in their own equations. Even the most advanced species, who had dismissed gods as relics of the past, stared into the void. They hoped something, anything was listening. Soon, prayer became policy rather than belief. Entire worlds synchronized psychic fields to broadcast hope into the darkness. Ancient hymns were translated into thousands of languages. These prayers were transmitted across subspace like distress beacons. Even the Galactic Council authorized the unthinkable, a unified metaphysical plea. They prayed to anything that might answer. Old gods were called upon once more. Forgotten watchers were remembered in desperation. Dimensional entities whose names caused madness were invoked. Hope was cast blindly into the void. Nothing answered. The invaders continued without pause. They consumed star systems methodically and without emotion. There was no cruelty, but no mercy either. They did not rage or taunt their victims. They simply arrived, and afterward, nothing remained. There was no debris left behind, no radiation lingered in their wake, not even echoes marked where civilizations had stood. It was as if the universe itself was being edited. Entire histories were erased in silence. Paragraph 11. Panic spread faster than light ever could. Trade routes collapsed almost overnight. Fleets abandoned borders that had been defended for centuries. Allies turned on one another in blind terror. Resources were fought over, even though they could only delay the inevitable. Refugee arcs drifted endlessly through space. They carried the last remnants of species that once ruled vast empires. Children grew old aboard failing ships. Entire cultures survived only as memories and recordings. And above it all, the Galactic Council watched their screens fill with red. Emergency session followed emergency session without rest. Probability models grew more grim with every recalculation. Analysts searched desperately for a future where survival was possible. Even the most optimistic simulations collapsed under scrutiny. Every path led to the same conclusion: total extinction. It was during one such session that the unthinkable was spoken. The meeting was held beneath the artificial skies of the council world. Delegates argued while exhaustion weighed heavily on them all. Then a quiet voice cut through the chamber. It belonged to a junior archivist. They were barely noticed at first, barely heard above the noise of despair. Their voice trembled as they spoke. "There's one more world," they said. Silence fell instantly across the chamber. Thousands of delegates turned toward the archivist. Irritation and exhaustion marked faces shaped by countless evolutions. The archivist hesitated but continued. They described a species classified as Class 5, technologically inconsistent, militarily unstable, and culturally contradictory. The chamber lights dimmed as a star map expanded above them. A small yellow sun appeared in the darkness. 8 planets circled it slowly. One of them glowed blue. Someone muttered a single word: Earth. Laughter followed, nervous and bitter. The humans were known across the galaxy, but they were not known for wisdom or restraint. Humanity had arrived late to the cosmic stage. Their reputation inspired concern rather than hope. Human technology lagged behind even minor galactic powers. They fought wars constantly, often against themselves. They poisoned their own planet and detonated weapons on their own soil. Their history was filled with atrocities they regretted yet repeated. Survival seemed more accidental than planned. Worse still were their myths and beliefs. They spoke of demons as if they were real. They told stories of hell with unsettling detail. Monsters lurking beyond reality filled their folklore. To advanced species, this signaled an undeveloped psyche. To the Galactic Council, it meant something far more dangerous. Humans were emotionally volatile and spiritually unstable. Why would we contact them? One delegate scoffed. Another pointed out they barely understood subspace. A third whispered that humans worshipped chaos itself. The archivist swallowed before speaking again. They are the only ones we haven't asked, they said. But the truth settled heavily over the chamber. Every god had been contacted already. Every higher intelligence had been reached. Every ancient power beyond the veil had remained silent. Earth alone had been left untouched. Not because it was forgotten, not because it was insignificant, but because everyone feared what might answer. No one knew what would respond if they prayed with humans. The debate that followed was short. Fear had a way of simplifying logic. Within hours, a decision was made. A transmission was prepared. Stripped of politics and pride, reduced to its raw essence, it became a plea. The message crossed space silently. It slipped through subspace channels humans barely monitored. There were no trumpets announcing its arrival. No visions or celestial signs accompanied it. There was only data. The transmission was received by a small listening station orbiting Earth's moon. Automated systems flagged it as anomalous. Human analysts stared at the translation in disbelief. One asked if it was a joke. Another whispered the truth. It was a prayer. Earth had been asked to help save the galaxy. The reaction was strange and unsettling. There was no celebration of importance. No panic spread through the population. No speeches were given. Instead, the data was classified immediately. It was buried beneath layers of secrecy older than most civilizations. The public never heard a word of it. The transmission was routed to places that did not officially exist. Places beneath mountains and under oceans. Symbols carved into stone long before spaceflight glowed once more. For the first time in centuries, ancient protocols were reactivated. On Earth, people did not gather to pray. They did not ask for miracles. They prepared. Deep within restricted chambers, unfamiliar alliances formed. Scientists sat beside theologians without argument. Generals stood next to monks in silence. Mathematicians worked alongside occultists dismissed as superstitious. No one laughed. They all knew the truth already. Humanity had prayed before. Something had answered then. Long before radios, satellites, or recorded history, doors had been opened. What came through was called demons. They were not named demons because they were evil. They were named so because they were honest. They did not pretend to be kind or merciful. Over millennia, humanity learned to close those doors. They learned how to bind what came through. What could not be destroyed was locked away. Places were chosen so deep and dark that memory itself struggled to reach them. Most species buried their past. Humans chained theirs, and they never forgot what it had cost. As alarms echoed across hidden facilities, a phrase appeared on secure screens. It was the same phrase everywhere on Earth. Protocol infernal, consideration phase. The galaxy continued to burn beyond their skies. Another civilization vanished as humans debated. They questioned whether they could unleash what they barely contained. They wondered if survival justified becoming monsters. Ethics they had sworn never to revisit returned with force. Above all, one question haunted them. If hell answered their call, would it ever stop listening? Far beyond Earth, the Galactic Council waited. They expected refusal, or silence. What they received instead was short and unencrypted 3 words that chilled them all. We hear you. There was no blessing attached, no promise of salvation, just those 3 words. Somewhere beyond sight and reason, something stirred. And fear, older than the stars themselves, began to wake.